Hi everyone, welcome. So today I'm here with my very good friend, Dr. John Baker, and we're going to be talking about how to successfully present at international conferences. So we're doing this for two reasons. One, because actually the first time I met Dr. John was when I attended my first conference, or when I presented at my first conference as a PhD researcher, and also my first international conference. And I was super nervous, even though I'm fairly confident in, the way I come across in most walks of life. I actually was super nervous. I didn't know, from the point of writing the abstract to going through the whole point of presenting, I really didn't know what I was doing. And I did have a lot of support from my department at the university that I'm doing my PhD at. But when I went to the UAE to present at this international conference, I think it was at the International Conference on Writing for STEM at the American University of Sharjah. I was alone and I was super nervous. And then, boom, I met Dr. John, and you took me under your wing and mentored me throughout there. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience to have somebody who is a renowned academic, and it was just, my imposter syndrome and everything that kind of flared up was really, tamed through having somebody who kind of just guided me and showed and, said, look, this is what it is, and it doesn't have to be this scary. So that's why I thought that it would be a good opportunity to share that with you guys here. And then the second thing is there's a very exciting conference that is coming up in December that Dr. John is chairing. And it is a hybrid conference, which is, of course, is really good because it's in Vietnam. So for those of you who would like to go to Vietnam, and for those of you who can't but still want to present, the opportunity is there because it's a hybrid conference. And we'll speak a little bit more about that in a moment. But as I said, Dr. John is chairing that, and it's hosted by English Beyond Borders. And, like I said, my friend is a renowned academic. He's a researcher / lecturer / assistant professor who is also an editor and reviewer in many journals. So hopefully we'll have some more from you, Dr. John, on how to successfully publish academically. Dr. John also teaches thesis writing for academic publishing, research methods, and this year alone has chaired and been on the committee for over 16 master's dissertations. So how he keeps his sanity is beyond me, but he does. And he's wonderful. So welcome, Dr. John. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So thank you for that great introduction. I mean,
thanks for the opportunity.
You did great. I remember when you first came in to the first conference, you were a little nervous and you were humble then as you are now. You did fantastic. And that was the first step to the road where we are now. You started this wonderful video series where you're helping people go down the road that you went to. You're finishing your PhD, and now you're on the organizing committee for the conference, and you're bringing a fresh insight and lens that's much needed. Thank you.
It's an honor. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You've also made this great because it's been a rough year. It's been a lot of work. I think I chaired 3 theses. I was the advisor for 3 theses this year. They all got published afterwards, and then I was on the committee for 16 theses, the 3-chapter, the final stage, where the committee, we all come together. And I got to see those people where you were. And when I saw them coming towards a conference like this, that kind of inspired a lot of thoughts because I knew they'd have a lot of the same questions. And then I see a lot of young colleagues coming, and older ones too, that always kind of bring up the same questions that we're going to talk about today. How to find a conference, how to submit to it, how to present at it successfully, how to publish afterwards. All of these questions we're going to address today, and hopefully we're going to help all the young people that are the young educators and young researchers, and the older ones too. I mean, young in the field, not necessarily young in age. but young in their publishing career. Take those first steps.
Can I just mention, when I was, because I've taught academic English at a leading UK university, which happens to be a Russell Group university. And actually, one of my colleagues there actually asked me, she said to me, how can I find these conferences? How can I submit? How can I get on? So this is something that really is a genuine, confusion and a question that people kind of want to know but don't know where to go. So hopefully we'll be able to address that here with you, Dr. John, and just make it as linear and as transparent as possible, and just show that it is a process that is possible without too much confusion or agony.
I think it's fun. I have to be honest, it's fun. A lot of people get very nervous in the beginning, but it's a lot of fun. So shall we begin?
Yes, please.
All right. I'll go ahead and I'll start with just a PowerPoint, and then we'll look at the website. Okay.
So this is the website for the International Conference in December.
Right. I'm going to use that as an example on how to do this. The goal, the presentation sort of has two goals. One is to help people learn how to do this, in the holistic sort of way, and then give them an open door to one where they can do it. So let's go ahead and see if I can do this. Okay, my name's John. I'm a professor, I'm a researcher, lecturer. Big part of my job is publication, teaching, writing, academic writing, research writing, and in this case, running conferences. I'm a member of English Scholars Beyond Borders, which is a group of international scholars, and they have an annual conference. And every year it's in a different place, where the first one was where you and I met, and this year it's in Vietnam, and I've had the pleasure to chair that one. I have the opportunity to work with a lot of young scholars coming in different journals when we get to help with their papers and things. It's kind of exciting. So they all ask the same questions that we're going to explore today. The first one is where to find conferences. So you have Google, right? So you must be able to find conferences. It's not that easy, but it's not that hard either once you know where to go. And you could use Google Advanced Search and international scholars. Believe it or not, you can look on Twitter. Okay, and you can look for International TESOL Conferences. Look for the keywords, or you can go to sites like International Conference Alerts or Conference Alerts or Oxford Seminars, okay, or the Linguist List. And there's lots of these. And for the user, they're most often free. And for the person or the organization posting them, they range from free to about $200 US or more. Okay, understanding conference websites. Well, you need to understand what they are if you're going to use them and use them effectively. So this is the one that we're going to explore today. And I'm going to walk us through each and every part of this website. Okay. And then at the end of the website, I'll just kind of click us through the site so we can take a look at it. Okay. So this is a website. And up here you have the bars. And sometimes you'll have drop-down bars, and sometimes you'll just say static bars like this one here. And this is the home page. And on the home page, you can usually see who's hosting it. You can see the hosting organization, and then you'll probably see the local host. It's rare that they're the same. Some of the smaller conferences will be the same, but even the large organizations, TIE, TESOL organizations, you have to host it somewhere. And usually that's at a university or a large conference center, or sometimes in a large hotel. More often than not, it's at a university or a center. Taiwan does ETAROC at the U Center every year, for example, and it's been doing the same place for 20 years. Okay. The first thing you want to know is this going to be hybrid? Is this going to be on site? Is it going to be virtual? If it's virtual, it may be pre-recorded. You may be able to give a pre-recorded presentation for 25 minutes, or they may ask you to give it virtually. If it's on site, you're going to have to travel, and you're going to need budget, and you're probably going to need funding from your university, and you can apply for it. Surprisingly, there is money there, and a lot of people don't apply for it. Okay, so figure out if it's on-site or virtual. In this case, this one is hybrid, so it's on-site and virtual. And if it's done well, and often it is, it's seamless. It's seamless. Sometimes they'll have hybrid and online in the same room. Sometimes they'll separate in different tracks. Sometimes they'll separate on different days. Each conference is different, so you need to figure it out. This particular one is seamless in that the tracks will be together and everything is going to be simultaneous, hybrid, online. Luckily, we have a really amazing tech team, far beyond my ability, I can say. The next thing you want to do is you look a little farther down on the website and you want to know, do you fit in? Now, normally a conference organizer wants to put everything on there, but they can't. You can only put so many things on there. So you kind of have to read between the lines, okay? When they say something like second language acquisition, they're covering a big umbrella there, and you probably fit in somewhere. So if your paper doesn't feel like it fits in, but it sort of fits in, they have this thing called other related areas. Take a swing at it. It might be in there. But if you're obviously not in there, maybe step away. You know, if you're doing a paper on second language acquisition, don't go submit to the medical journal, the medical conference, okay? Unless some of the medical conferences will have an in for you in a particular area, but you have to read carefully, okay? Okay, the next thing you want to know are the dates. And these are really important because if you miss a date, you've got to ask for an extension. And honestly, they're not always given. And the other thing is to try to submit early, because what they'll do is they'll submit and accept on a rolling basis, a lot of them. Now, some will have a date when they just start to, they just take all the abstracts and they're going to review them at one time. And they tell you that date. And they tell you the date they're going to get back to you. So different conferences are different. Some will do a rolling, some will do a one-time thing. And it'll tell you right there, okay, usually. It'll have the abstract submission closes and then registration closes. And usually there's about a 2-week window there so that you'll have time to register after you submit your paper. And then the conference start date. And sometimes they'll close the submission about a month early because they have a lot of work to do. They have to create the proceedings and create the schedule and that sort of thing. And then you can see the conference date, okay? The conference end date. So this is a 2-day conference, as you can see, 9th and 10th. And then there's all these networking opportunities. There'll be lunches and dinners, and there'll be little tours after, and there'll be pre-conference workshops. And these are great to get involved in. But now here's the big but. You don't want to waste your time or your money or your paper on a conference that frankly isn't appropriate. There are some conferences out there that are attracting papers for fees, and it's monetary in nature. Okay, and I'm not going to use the word predatory, but I would say there are some out there that are like that. Okay, so you have to decide whether or not you want to go into this conference based on the conference's credibility. Just like analyzing anything on the internet, you have to look at it for its credibility. And one of the ways to look at it for credibility is, of course, the quality of the website. You know, was a little bit of money put into putting this together. Okay, but there's also people who are really good at it, so that's only the first step. You want to see who their partners are and who their sponsors are. Okay, if they have other TESOL organizations, local, international, there's a pretty good bet they're okay. Okay, and if they have sponsors, so some of the larger organizations, some of the smaller organizations, that means they're funded, so they're probably not looking for your dollar. Okay. The other thing is they're going to have a call for papers. This is where you read whether or not you really fit in. Okay, and it's kind of fun. So they'll have a call for papers, and you can find this on the website. You'll find this on a posters, and it'll basically cover everything we just talked about. It'll talk about the title, talk about the days, it'll talk about the hybrid, and oftentimes it'll be the same color and themes as the conference to sort of create a connection between the user and the media. And then down here, they'll have the dates, and more often than not, they'll have a help page. They'll have a submission link and help page. And this is usually with a social media app, with WhatsApp or WeChat or Line or Zalo or whatever is in the area. They usually have a local one, then they'll have an international one. Use your phone, log in, and talk to somebody. There's always somebody there. Now, it may take 8 or 10 hours depending on the time zone. You know, if they're in the UK and you're contacting them from South Africa or some other place, expect a delay. But they'll usually get back to you as quickly as they can. Okay. Another thing you want to look at for credibility is speakers. And the keynote speakers are fun to look at. Sometimes they're very well known, such as Roger Nunn, who's the chair, the leader of English Scholars Beyond Borders, and who has been editor of countless major journals. He's amazing. And then there's VJ, and people know these guys. Okay, people know these guys. Sometimes it'll be a local person that they brought in, who's a local, a local well-known person. Okay, the other thing you want to talk about are plenaries. So it goes keynote, plenaries, invited. That's usually how it goes. Now, keynotes are usually funded. If you can get a spot as a keynote speaker, you'll probably get your airplane covered, your hotel covered, probably get a stipend for speaking, and you'll be a very welcome guest. Plenaries similarly sometimes get funded. Okay, and you can look at the plenaries and say, do I know these people? And you say, oh yeah, I know these people, or oh, I want to meet these people. You see Tirtha there from Rupathka Journal in India. Okay, you see Joe Maynard from CSOL Journal. You see Peter Sayer from TESOL Journal. Okay, you see Chris Theis from University of California, Davis. You see Naeem Mahan, another editor. John Edmondson, another editor. Ahmed Akar. Okay, you see all of these people. Professor Vu is a local person from a local TESOL organization, and you connect with these people, and you get to know whether or not you want to be participating in this, and you want to learn from the insights that they bring to the conference. And they often have some very, very good things to say that you want to hear. It'll help you grow in the community. And you also meet these people, and sometimes they'll say, hey, we have an opportunity for a copy editor, for a graduate student to come on in. And then you come in as a copy editor, and then you may come in as a reviewer, and then you start to get your feet wet, and you do reviews, you put them on Publons and things like that. Then you have the feature speakers, and they're equally wonderful. Okay, you can see Lindsay Heron from Co-TESOL. You can see Theron Mueller there. You can see Joseph Colbert from the CALL Computer Language Learning Journal. Okay, you can see Katrina Manoff from the NGO, INGIF, that does the I always mispronounce the name of her organization. She does the Ukraine relief effort. And you can see her logo at the beginning of this, and they're always just a little plug for her. They're getting funded now. They help about 10,000 refugees right now, and they're looking for volunteer teachers. So if you're interested, it's a great way to help a lot of people. Sometimes you're that safe place for that young person, 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week, that brings a lot of joy to someone's life. So you're going to meet a lot of great people. Custodio's there. Okay, he's another journal editor. Everyone is. They usually pick people who have come up in the field, and you probably want to learn from these people. They're great teachers. Sometimes you'll see Stephen Krashen, Rod Ellis, Cummings, these fellows. The brilliant people that we look up to in this field. Okay, the next thing you want to know is you want to look at an organizing committee. And again, you'll look for names here to see if you connect. And you look for the conference chair. Okay, and that's usually a local person. And then there's an honorary chair who's given an honor based on his or her position in the organization. And then you have a co-chair, and that's often the host's person, or sometimes they'll have two co-chairs. Now you have the science committee, and these guys are great. They give a lot of good advice. And if you have a very, very international representation there from good universities and the like, you can say, this might be a pretty good conference. It's pretty well organized. Okay. If you have someone from, oops, I'm sorry. And then you look at the advisors, and these people have done it. They've chaired conferences. They're usually the guys and they're usually the people that give the feedback on how to do it. You know, they're great resources. And I think I see somebody I recognize on there. Do you see anybody you recognize in there?
On this one, I think I recognize the academic from Niigata University.
I think I recognize one from Lancaster University too.
Um,
I believe you're there as well. But yeah, there's a lot of great people there. There's Sawam Prabha from Odisha. There's Charles Nunn, there's Darren Mueller, Tirtha. Okay. And then you have some journal editors here, Peter Sayer, okay, BJ, Siva. And then you have moderators. And this is this opportunity for you, the young scholar coming in, to moderate a couple sessions. And you get the feel for the conference. And if you volunteer to be a moderator, you'll introduce the speaker's bio and the background and things like that. So this is a great opportunity to get involved. And if you see a conference and you say, hey, I'd like to be a moderator, if they have an opportunity, they'll often bring you in. Okay. And it's a great start to your career. And later in your career, you can continue to do it too. And if you're one of those friendly, bubbly, qualified, very, very efficient people who basically can get the job done, you'll keep doing it from year to year. It's a lot of fun. Okay, the next thing you want to talk about are your publication opportunities. Now, sometimes all you need is an abstract to submit. And that's fine, because you're going to submit your paper you're going to submit your abstract to the conference. And then later, full paper is invited. It's optional. You don't have to do it in a lot of conferences. You can just present the abstract. Okay, and then later you'll be invited to your paper can be included in the proceedings. Now, all abstracts get to a proceedings. Okay, but sometimes they'll also have the papers there, and then later they'll have some journals that they'll invite you to submit to. Okay, is publication guaranteed? Absolutely not. It would be very, very unethical for anyone to promise publication. And if you see, we're going to publish your paper for only $250 US, run, do not walk. Okay. All right. Run away. These sort of things, they're not good. You'll end up publishing in Popular Mechanics or something, you know, and these journals come and go night and day, so that you end up getting the journal kicked out of Scopus after a year or two. And frankly, that's a little embarrassing for your career. Okay. You may say, I need a publication fast, but you'll end up getting something you're not proud of later. Okay. So it's really important. Now, this particular conference has one journal that's Scopus Index, which is English Scholars Beyond Borders. And then Rupakatha is Scopus Index, is also in the Web of Science as an Emerging Science Index journal. Now, oftentimes, you'll also have a third journal or a fourth journal that aren't Scopus. They're just ISSN, and they're hoping to be Scopus in a few years. Okay, and so you can publish in there. Now, what you need to know is just because you publish in a journal today and it becomes Scopus later, your paper doesn't become Scopus. Your paper is only Scopus when your paper is Scopus in the journal at the time of being Scopus, and that's kind of confusing for some people. So it's kind of good to note that. All right. So you see if you want to, if this is the journal that you want to publish in. Okay. The next thing you do is you look at abstract submissions. Okay, now you don't have to go in this order. There may be things that interest you more. Okay, you want to know what kind of papers and what kind of presentations can be there. Sometimes you want to look at a full presentation. That's where you can submit your paper that's in progress. For example, just your introduction, your literature review, and your methods. Okay, or a full presentation. Introduction, literature, methods, results, conclusions, limitations, suggestions. Or you might have a theoretical paper that doesn't follow that structure. These sort of things go into full paper presentations. Now, workshops are pedagogical ideas. This is where you say, yay, I've got these great ideas about this teaching technique and I want to introduce it to someone. You'll also see publisher sessions too. Sometimes the publishers will have their materials presented here, and they'll do it in a fun sort of educational way. And young teachers really like this. I had the opportunity to do that for publishers for about 14 years. It was good fun. Okay, the last one is a poster session, and we'll look at that in a minute. That's where you come in and you present your paper on a poster. And you stand there in a room of 20 or 30 people, and other people wander around with coffee and cakes, and they talk to you about your posters, and they ask questions, and they give insights, and your paper grows. And it really helps the paper to grow in a healthy one. Those are usually longer, about 45 minutes. And again, there's about 25, 30 people in the room, and everyone walks about. Okay, the next thing you want to do is click to submit, but not so fast. You're going to want to read the submission instructions. Okay, and here you're going to learn about the length. Your abstract, should it be 200 words, that sort of thing. You're going to learn about the length of your title. You're going to learn the length of your keywords, that sort of thing. You may learn for the length of the paper if you chose to submit. Okay. Now, papers look like this. They're 200 words. You have a nice title. Okay. They're left justified or blocked. And funny enough, they need to go in the same structure as a paper. So you may or may not have an introduction. Different conferences and journals make that optional, or they may take it out. You may just start with the objectives. Either way, then you'll move on to your methods, your results, your conclusions, and your discussion, and your suggestions for future research. But they are done in a way that have special verb tenses according to the APA, just like your paper. Let's take a look at those. Okay, and maybe before we do that, this is what a PowerPoint, by the way, you're just doing the PowerPoint, okay? So this is what your PowerPoint might look like if you're doing the full paper. You would have, so I'm gonna just step back for a second, I'm gonna back step a bit. You'd have the title page, name, qualifications, just like a little bit like a master's thesis or a PhD thesis, if that's something you can relate to at this stage of your career. Okay, and if you're only going for the first part, you could stop right at the methods, okay, if it's an in-progress work. Now, you're going to want to follow the verb tenses because APA has verb tenses. So the literature view is presented here in the past or the present perfect. The methods are presented in the past or the present perfect. Reporting is past, discussion of results is present, and the presentation of conclusions are present. And I think this is an area that a lot of people have trouble with. They don't know the rules. And so the abstract needs to look just like the paper. Okay. Now workshops are 30 minutes. And again, they're about 200-word abstracts. And why do they give you a limit? Because they're going to have to put them in the presentation. They're going to have to put them in the proceedings. And they want all the abstracts to be about the same size, so the design and layout kind of works that way. And they're easier to edit. Now, the workshops are often done in the future tense. And it says exactly what you're going to do. What's this paper going to do? This workshop will explore presentations. That's this one here, given at international conferences. The workshop will also illustrate preparation. So you say step by step what you're going to do, step by step. Now, posters, a little bit like your abstract for your full paper, okay? And again, this is for a completed or in progress work. Most often in progress. And this is really a good place for graduate students to start. They're much easier to get accepted to because they know these are in progress and people are going to come and give great feedback. Okay, this is what a poster session looks like. You can see all these people walking around. By the way, these were borrowed from the internet shamelessly. Okay, so I'm not sure where they came from. I've never been to any of these conferences, so they were borrowed shamelessly. I'm sorry. As examples. So sometimes you'll have them on tripods like this. Sometimes you'll have them on backboards. Okay. Sometimes you'll have them on poster boards. Okay. Sometimes you'll have them on tables. People walk around. They'll ask you about your poster, and basically you give a very, very short introduction. Literature review, methods, results, all in one paper. This guy has everything right here in one paper down here. Kind of exciting. Okay, and usually the website will have a little PDF on to teach you how to do it, or you can write to the the conference chair, and he or she will provide you with one. Okay, so this is what it looks like. If it's a completed work, you have all of the sections you would normally have in a paper. If it's an in-progress work, you just stop down about methods, and then you skip over implications and suggestions for future work. So this video is being recorded, so you can kind of stop and pause and take a look at these things as you go along. These were the big questions for me when I was first starting out. And what goes in here? What goes in here? And when you had somebody who could tell you, or you could go look it up, it was pretty great. Okay. Now, you're ready to go. You're going to submit your abstract. Okay. Again, you want to read the submission instructions, okay? Because if you don't, you might get a surprise. Okay. Now, a lot of conferences use a conference platform. Okay, that's not inside the website, because it can put a lot of steps in there that help you produce better work by putting you through some guides. This particular one is through EasyChair. Is it the only one? No, but it is a good one. Okay. And you're going to have to, excuse me, you're going to have to open an account for this. The opening the account could sometimes be the most time-consuming part, but it's pretty important because that's how you're going to get the email and the feedback. Now, this is preprints, e-prints, okay? You may get the opportunity to have a preprint. I'll leave that up to you to decide for yourself whether or not you want to do it. Oftentimes, before your paper is officially published in a journal, you have the opportunity to put a draft there, maybe at different stages. Okay? And some people do it in the very early stages. I believe there's one on Academia EDU for people to submit their papers in early, because you get feedback from other people. Other times, you can put your papers in preprint and just before publication, and you'll get a lot more visualization of your paper. It'll have a lot wider audience. Okay. The next step after you look at the preprints is to make a new submission. And this will be in different places depending on the website. So you click on Make a New Submission. And this will typically take you to a series of questions. And you'll have to add your first name, your last name, your email, the country or region. This will be where you're located, and of course the organization. Now, the web page is usually optional. Now, what is the difference between a first author, second author, third author, and corresponding author? Well, first author and second author, third author, corresponding author, these are usually cut up in the pie depending upon how much effort was put into a paper. Now, the first author is the lead author. He or she will be the most important person on the paper. The corresponding author also has a very important role, because this person will be receiving all the email back and forth from the journal and dealing with all the revisions and things like that, or the conference in this case. Now, for your professorship, your associate professor, assistant professorship, or any of the ways they count at your university, first author and corresponding author are usually the ones that are counted. The other authorships are nice and they look great on the resume, but they often don't carry as much weight. So you're going to have to look into your own institution to see how that works out. I'm not saying that it's the same every place. This is just something one needs to explore as they make author agreements with the people that they're writing with. Okay. You'll click your title. Usually they have a limit of 10 words or more, and it says pretty clearly. And then they'll have an abstract, and they'll say the number of words. And if you exceed that, the system will not allow you to submit. It'll just sit there and keep looking at you and stopping until you adjust it. Okay. Then it'll ask you to put in keywords. Now, keywords, sometimes it'll ask you to 4 or 6 or 3, and you have to follow those, because if you add more or less, you're not going to be able to move forward. And the computer counts these. And you get to sit there and keep pressing the button and wondering why nothing's happening. But until you hit the right button, nothing's happening. Okay, now they're going to ask you a series of questions. And this will help reduce the confusion between you and the conference. They'll ask you, are you on site? Are you online? Is it what type of paper are you presenting? What type of presentation are you presenting? The number of authors. This helps with the record keeping, and it makes the organization of the conference a lot easier. Answer these questions carefully. because if you make a mistake, you might end up in the wrong section of the conference, and then it creates a lot of frustration for everyone. They'll be very nice about it, but in reality, it just makes a lot of work for everyone. Okay, then you'll have the number of presenters, and then you'll click your topic area. Click your topic area carefully, because that's how they're going to group you in what they call tracks. So maybe there's 5 tracks, in one day, and they'll put the themes of those tracks based on the area. So you might have a writing track, you might have a listening track, you might have an identity track, you might have a writing center track, social linguistics track, and sometimes the tracks are broken up by half day. So the first day is different than the other one. Usually they don't have a link for each particular seminar or presentation. They do sometimes. Usually they just have a link at the top, and then you get to stay with it for the entire day. Sometimes you'll have a password to get in, sometimes you won't. Each conference is done differently. I have one rule of thumb for conferences: keep it simple. Okay, the more simple it is, the easier it is for everyone, and then you don't have people, and you don't have to go into that. Remember, I said there's a help button where you can a help thing in WhatsApp or WeChat, or sometimes it's isolated inside the conference. They'll have a special one just for that conference inside the website. If it's real simple, you don't have to do that. It makes things a lot easier. Okay, and then you have a submission checklist. And this is a checklist. Did you do all the things you were supposed to do? And if you didn't do them, you need to go back and do them. Okay. Now, some conferences will produce a PDF of what everything looks like, so you can check it and you can preview it and you can authorize it to go forward. At this time, you really should look at it, because it may not have come out the way you thought it was going to come out. Okay. Now, you're going to want to have a bio. A bio usually goes in the back of the proceedings. And always include your academia or your ResearchGate or your ORCID number. Specifically, always try to get your ORCID number in there, because this is what tracks you, and people can kind of see what you're doing. You may have noticed my ORCID number on the first slide of this conference. I'm sorry, on the first slide of this presentation. And read this carefully. They're going to tell you single spacing, 1.5 spacing, what type of font. Follow it, because you're going to reduce the work for the poor person who has to create those proceedings. And if you make their job easy, they're going to want to have you back at future conferences. If you start to become a real problem, they're going to say, hey, wait a minute, we had an experience last time and we don't want to go through that again. Okay. Finally, you're going to submit. Okay. Now, always screenshot this, because you may not have an opportunity to come back to it. Okay. These are the help pages. So if you have problems with submissions, like right here, you click here. If you have other conference problems, use these. Okay. Now, I always personally find the email to be nice, but I find those WeChat, WhatsApp nice, because I can answer the questions right now. And there is the number of exchanges goes really quickly. So there's clarification of purpose. Okay. Moving back into this conference, looking holistically at all the conferences, now just looking at this one as an example of where you might like to submit your paper or your presentation or your workshop or your poster. Only an abstract is needed. Some papers, again, some journals sometimes want full papers. This one is just asking for an abstract. This needs to be done by November 12th. Okay. Submitting earlier is better. Presenting a paper is optional. If you choose to submit a paper, 2 journals are offered. These are Scopus and Web of Science journals. And I mentioned those earlier, and you can find them on the webpage. Once again, ethical conferences and ethical journals will never promise you a publication, and this one will not either. Your papers will go through a full review process. Okay. And also, if you choose to submit to other journals, it's your paper. You don't lose your rights by submitting to a conference. Now, ethically, you can submit at one conference, you can present at one conference and submit at another journal. They're completely separate. And sometimes opportunities are given, but they're opportunities. They're not contracts. Okay. Keys to success: read the submission guides carefully. Stay within the word count. Follow the structure that we talked about. Pay attention to the language and the verb tense. Make sure your format's right. Okay. Again, stay within the word count. Now, different conferences have different styles. This particular conference has an APA style. complete the revisions early or on time. If the reviewer has taken the time to do the work and send it to the editor, and the editor has taken the time to write you an email, he or she probably has to write 150 or 200 or 300 emails. If they took the time to write to you, they're serious about having you come. So please take the revisions seriously and make them as soon as possible. That way, you get in and you get accepted, okay, and everyone's happy. And register on time. Please don't miss a registration deadline. Oftentimes, if you miss a registration deadline, they may give your slot to someone else. Sometimes they won't. It all depends on how many papers a conference has. Okay. Now, so here's how it works. Okay. Number one, submit your paper. This goes to an editor. Okay. This is the larger editor. This will go for a review. Okay. Then it will go to a peer review. Okay. Then it will come back to number 2. It'll go to the editor. Then it'll go to number 4. And they may send you a request for minor revisions, a request for major revisions, a reject and resubmit. Okay. If they give you a reject, they don't want to hear from you anymore. You're done. Okay. But if you get any of these others, woohoo! Okay. Even if you get a reject and resubmit, they're still interested in talking to you, because they're going to have to read your paper again, and they have enough faith that it might look good enough that they're willing to spend their time on it. Most reviewers work for free. So if they write this, they're the ones that are going to have to look at it again. So they're expecting you to go through it. Requests for minor revisions are nice. Requests for major revisions, fine. You're still in the game. Okay. Finally, it'll get to the accept stage. Okay. You'll get to the accept stage. All right. Once you get to the accept stage, you have to present your paper. Okay. You can present a full paper, workshop, or poster online for this conference. Okay. And then online, you can do a full paper or a workshop. It's kind of hard to do a poster online. Some conference will advertise that, but a poster session is typically 20, 30 people in a room. It's kind of hard to do that. I think technically it could be done. I'm just saying it's not usually done. I can imagine ways that a poster session could be done with 25, 30 people in a room, with breakout rooms and visiting rooms. And I think it'd be pretty exciting. I'm hoping somebody will do that. Okay. Now, the next thing you have to do is look at the program. Now, usually this will be put out 2 or 3 weeks before the conference, so it's a little early for this one. But what it'll look like, you'll have 3 to 5 tracks, and you'll have your keynote that we talked about, your plenaries, and then you'll have 3 to 5 tracks, and you'll have presentations in those tracks. There'll be a short break for lunch. Okay, and then you'll come back and you'll finish off at 5 o'clock. And the next day it'll start again. Come back about a week or 2 before the conference, and the conference chair or the committee will often send you an email. There's usually a pre-workshop practice the day before, where they invite all the authors online, if it's an online conference, where you just kind of get to do it. You know, you walk through it and you troubleshoot things and you get to ask questions. Attend those, really attend those. Also, I forgot to mention that sometimes a conference will ask you to send a pre-recorded presentation instead of live. There's a lot of good points to that. It solves a lot of technical issues. On the other hand, it reduces some interaction. You have to decide what's right for you. Okay, now, this isn't for you, but maybe you have a company. Maybe you have an education program, or you're a materials provider, or you're a school. You may say, wow, I work for this school and I want to advertise for this conference. Oftentimes conferences will have a sponsorship opportunity, and you can buy a package to fully sponsor your conference. Now, if you're not a big school or a big organization, you can have a la carte. You can get out for $100 or $200 US, or you can pay as much as $2,500 in conferences. Okay. So the small guys can get in and get their logo on the website and stuff like that. And that really helps. Okay. Now, you probably want to know about visas. Now, you got to check carefully, because you may find yourself accepted to a conference but unable to go because you can't get in the country, or they have quarantine for COVID. Always check the website. Some countries are visa-free, depending on where you're going. You'll get an exemption. Sometimes you'll have to get an e-visa. Sometimes you'll have to go to the embassy. Sometimes you'll have to get a business visa. And if the harder the visa to get, the more support you'll get from the conference. Okay. Now, lastly, there's a help desk. Okay. Help desks are nice, and they encourage you to ask questions. Oftentimes, nowadays, there's a QR code, okay, or there's a link. All right. This is starting to bring us to the end of our close. But the last thing we need to talk about, you need a place to stay. And sometimes the conference will have accommodations on their website. Now, oftentimes the conference has made an agreement with a couple hotels. Now, they're not getting any money for this, okay? But the conference will have a corporate rate where those with, if you give the name of the conference and you email them directly, you'll get a special rate. Always ask the conference about this, and they'll know who to talk to, and they'll direct you accordingly. They won't always put it on the website, though. Okay, they'll usually save that for people who've been accepted, so they don't flood the hotel with a lot of stuff. Okay. Now, this is our link to the conference. Okay, there's a link there, and there's a QR code. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you that took the opportunity to come and watch this presentation as a holistic way to see your overall publishing goals. I'd like to also offer you the opportunity to come to us and enjoy this conference with us to present or attend. There's the link, there's the QR code. And as also always, Nafisa, it's been amazing to be with you professionally. You always bring great opportunities to share things with the young scholars. And I think you've done a super job on this today. Thank you.
Likewise, and the pleasure is all mine. So thank you very much for that really, really insightful presentation. And like I said, myself, I relearn and learn new things. And it's been an honor and definitely helpful to myself and hopefully for everyone who watches this video. So thank you very much. And I will definitely see you at the conference. And I hope we get as a diverse range of presenters that also come from this platform, and those who possibly will be their first time. Yes. So you can say, you know, we would love to be part of your journey in academic presentations and publications. So we hope this is an opportunity for that to happen. And I think there's just a few things I want to mention about the visa. Yeah. The harder it is to get, you will get support from the conference and people, but also the harder it is to get, the earlier you need to prepare. And then also it's worth just having a standby, which is why it's great to have a hybrid conference like this, because you are able to, if you can't come in person, you'll be able to present online. And that happened quite recently. One conference I had, the Higher Education Conference, close-up conference, which is was at Lancaster University. One of the presentees was supposed to present with her supervisor, but the supervisor couldn't get this visa from South Africa. So what happened was she presented online. She presented, the presenter presented in person and had her supervisor online. And the reason why I know is because she used my laptop to do that. So it just shows you the nature of conferencing. Versatility. Is very much a bonding opportunity. And I don't want to sound too hoo-ha about it, but you really do come to bond with people in a really short time. You do. There's also a sense of belonging there that you know, you're coming together of something that is a shared interest. And you will definitely come out better. And also, hopefully, you will also make other people better speakers, presenters, researchers, and even thinkers, really. But in the sense of belonging, I mean, when I can't remember what it was, because all of my conferences have been lucky enough to have funded by my university, which is something you said, Dr. John. You said the funding is there. So do find out, even if it's not a university, maybe you're working for an organization, it's something that's going to benefit them as an organization. So ask them, don't be shy. This is something that, you know, if there is a fee for travel, for costs or whatever it is, do find out. But definitely universities do have that. And a lot of researchers actually have a budget anyway. So that's something that, you know, if it does cost money, do find out about it. Absolutely. In my case, I contacted one of the keynote speakers here, who was the chair of our first, the where we met,
Right,
my first
right,
conference, Dr. Roger Nunn, and he was so helpful.
He is.
I mean, imagine how busy he must have been as the chair, but he literally took the time to email me back and say to me, don't worry, even if you get a delay in paying for whatever it is, I've made a note of that you're coming here, and at my end everything is fine. And that really like spoke to me, that because I was completely nervous, like, oh my god, I'm not going to get to the UAE on time. But just getting that you know, that human response, and you know, like I said, he was the chair of the entire thing, a senior academic. It was just really wonderful. And then when I arrived in Sharjah, he invited me with his wife and another academic from the US. And we had, you know, we had a coffee outside. Yeah, it was John, your namesake.
It was John, yeah.
Dr. John Unger.
Oh, right. Oh, he's lovely, isn't he? He's a lovely guy.
He is. This was just the day before I met you. I think I met you the next morning. But it was just really relaxed. We spoke about things that weren't necessarily academic. And that's why I said the sense of belonging does come up. And then VJ as well, who's the keynote speaker. Again, I spoke to him and I told him about my insecurities in academic publishing. He said to me, well, why don't you send me something? I'll have a look at it and perhaps we can work on something together. And this is the first time I met him. So there's definitely a good sense of belonging that is built. So I definitely would recommend anybody who's interested in sharing knowledge, and you know, you don't have to be an academic, but you know, if you do have a professional interest in TESOL teaching, or you know, something that's related to this, you know, do come along, and we'd love to meet you. We'd love to have you, wouldn't we, John?
It'd be great. It'd be great.
So John, I think both of us, one thing we really enjoy is the social aspect of international conferencing, you know, the meeting people from all around the world. And that's something that, you know, is valued in all professions, but actually meeting people, there's the cultural experience side of it, but then there's also the socializing aspect, and then the professional development that is, you know, invaluable. So we really would like to invite you to present at this conference, of course, and meet you. And I'm going to share the details of the conference just to be clear. I have the conference website here with the details, which will be posted in the video description bar below. And we also want to emphasize the hybridity as a word that we went back and forth on. Hybridity, well, it's a hybrid conference. So we want to emphasize the hybrid nature of it. Of course, we do want to welcome you to Vietnam, Ton Duc Thang University, and we are holding this conference on the 9th and 10th of December. The details are here. Of course, we've got the code for you to scan, but like I said, the details will be listed in the video description bar. And just to reiterate, the title of the conference is the International TESOL Conference, Envisioning Possibilities. So John, thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you for your time sharing all the useful knowledge. And like I said, I did benefit from relearning and also learning some new things, which is not just beneficial to me, but of course to anyone who watches this video. So a massive thanks to you, and it's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Nafisa. It's always a pleasure to see you. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the conference.
And anyone else who would like to submit and present also. Thank you. So
everyone's encouraged and invited. Everyone's encouraged and invited to submit an abstract. We're looking forward to it.
We are. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching.
Bye.